Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak. This is the Automotive ADHD Show with Matt West.
And here we are, rocking it on the Automotive ADHD Show. Matt West here, hanging out with you, talking cars, loaded show for you today. We have a perhaps unintentionally themed NASCAR segment later in the show. We're going to talk about moonshine and the merits of throwing bumpers at people and how it can be a good thing, actually. We're also going to talk about true freedom, the meaning of true freedom, and how Texas has legalized the somewhat contested, especially recently, K-car. And we're not talking about your dad's Chrysler LeBaron. No, it's a different kind of K-car. We're going to get to that. Also, diesel electric truck manufacturer Edison Motors has found themselves at the center of some government conspiracy. So we are going to talk about that and more, as well as play some of your car sounds on this edition of the show. Now, I have been on the road for work all week, and I'm freshly sleep deprived and ready to do the show. I'm back here in Colorado, and I had an interesting experience and almost missed my flight because of Joe Biden. Yes, the president himself. And I'm not even being sarcastic. I mean, actually, because of the president. And this isn't one of those like the dog ate my homework stories. The president made me late. No, the president really did make me almost late. And so I was traveling for work, and I was working at an event, and it was right next to where Joe Biden, turns out, I didn't know he was doing this. He was doing a campaign event, campaign speech. And so what happened is the entire city basically shut down, okay? And all of the roads are blocked off. Police, Secret Service, all these people blocked everything off so the president could get in with the motorcade and then get out. And all of this was happening completely. I was completely unaware of all of this. And so when I was leaving, I had scheduled an Uber drive to take me and my bags back to the airport, which was about a 20-minute drive. And 20 minutes, maybe 30 with traffic, maybe 30. And I got in the Uber vehicle, and I have to give the driver props because he was incredible. And more on that later. But I got in the vehicle, and the driver and I both kind of said, what's going on with all this traffic? Oh, Joe Biden's doing this event. And yeah, and it turns out he was. And it turns out that with my luck, timing-wise, I was leaving right around the same time that Joe Biden was also leaving, our president, our commander-in-chief, as you know. And so what happened is the little like time estimated to the airport, like the estimation on the Uber app, and the driver had it up on his dashboard on his phone. It went from like 20 minutes to an hour and 40. I mean, the city was in gridlock because of all the roads being shut down, and then the motorcade has to go through. And I said, well, gosh, that's going to be tough because I've got a flight in an hour, which, again, I should have had plenty of time to make it there, get my bags checked, and get through security. And the Uber driver basically says, I got you. And what happens is we then proceed to take every single neighborhood, back road, back street, alleyways, even through the sketchiest of the neighborhoods, definitely off the beaten path. And somehow, without actually speeding, without actually exceeding the speed limit, I'm pretty sure the Uber driver would get in trouble if he did that. But without actually doing that, he got me to the airport in 40 minutes, even though the timing estimate was saying it was going to be an hour and 40 on the regular roads. And I have to give this man props because, I mean, he knew his way around the back roads. He knew his way through the alleyways, all of this stuff. And, I mean, I don't think Uber lets you rate 6 stars. It doesn't. It caps out at 5 stars, which is a crime because this driver single-handedly, I mean, really, truly astounding. But here's the thing. The story's not done there because I get to the airport. I've got 20 minutes to get my bags checked and get through security and then ride the train thing to my gate and, board the plane. And so what happens is I get my bags checked. Okay, good. Security, good. I've got TSA pre-checked. That went pretty well. It saves a lot of time. And I get through there. And then I sprint to the subway thing that takes you to the gates, and then from there to my gate. I mean, I am full sprint. And I'm carrying my computer bag and some other stuff, and I'm just sprinting through this airport. People are looking at me like, gosh, that guy looks like he's running late. And I get to my gate. I'm out of breath. Get to the gate right as the airline representative at the gate gets on the little PA speaker and says, hey, we're sorry to inform you that the flight has now been delayed because of Air Force One. They've grounded all the flights so that Air Force One can take off. And so twice the president has conspired to make me late and delay my travel plans. And twice that happened. And so we waited. Air Force One took off. I didn't actually get to see it from the gate I was at. I really would have liked to. That would have been kind of cool. But regardless, you know what? I was amazed that I made it. And hindsight, looking at it now, had I actually been late in traffic because Air Force One was then delaying the flights taking off, I still probably would have made the flight, in all honesty. But the thing is, this Uber driver, one thing I have to mention, and credit to Uber for finding this guy. I mean, I know Uber drivers are contractors and they work when they want, but this dude was awesome. I mean, the guy was amazing. And to his credit, the presidential motorcade left roughly around the same time that I left. And they had all the roads blocked. They had, all of the escorts, police on motorcycles, Secret Service, black Escalades, and all of this stuff, and armored vehicles, no less. And my Uber driver got me to the airport in roughly the same amount of time because I got there and then the president had to leave on the plane. So, I mean, realistically, we were only probably a few minutes off. So my Uber driver, I would like to think, did just as good of a job as the presidential protection detail rushing him from his speaking engagement to the airport. I mean, I'm just saying, Uber, I will say Uber has made a grave mistake, which is not adding a 6th star on the app for me to rate this guy. Now, I don't take Ubers often. When I'm here back home, I don't take Ubers. Why? I'm a car guy. I got a bunch of cars, and at least when they run, I like to drive them. So, right, I don't use Uber often, but when I'm traveling for work, it is my go-to. And 6 stars on that app. We need it for this one guy. And I mean, I tipped him really well. And I think I maxed out the tip that they'll let you give on Uber. So, but 5 stars, max tip. And it's a shame that I couldn't give him 6 stars. But you know what? That's okay. So, I mean, really, when you think about it, yeah, I mean, this is how things go. The president himself conspired against yours truly from getting back to Colorado so I could do this very radio show. I mean, who does this guy think he is? What does he think he is, the president? Well, okay, he is the president. So I guess we have to cut him some slack. But I think I'll have to have a word with his scheduler and people, maybe the Secret Service, next time I'm traveling and he is traveling and we're side by side, at least in the same vicinity, like, hey, we gotta have some time separation here so I can, get to the airport on time, obviously. Because that matters. That matters. I think the only thing that could have made this better is if the Uber driver was driving a bulletproof van, too. That would have just made it super cool. But I don't think his van was bulletproof. I'm actually pretty sure it was a fairly high mileage Toyota Sienna. But that's okay. That's okay. You know what? I didn't have to walk and I made it on time. So props to my Uber driver for that. So if you've got any interesting Uber stories, I would encourage you to share those, by the way, on the Facebook page, facebook.com/automotive-ADHD. I might put a post up there with this clip, this segment from the show, and then you can comment below if you've got any good Uber stories or, well, Lyft, taxi, any of those things. I mean, taking an Uber, it's kind of like the Kleenex of, ride sharing, I guess, now, because it's like a brand name that we all recognize. Obviously. So, but hey, there you go. Let me know if you've got any great stories on that. Facebook.com/automotive-ADHD. Now, coming up, we're talking about NASCAR and perhaps some government controversy with Edison Motors. That's all coming up here, as well as your car sounds on the Automotive ADHD show. Don't go anywhere.
And now for how things work with an engineer.
Rotary engines. Regret.
And that was how things work with an engineer. More of how things work can be found at facebook.com/automotive-ADHD.
And we are back here on the Automotive ADHD show. Matt West here, hanging out with you, talking cars. Of course, you can catch this show on the radio, several great radio stations here in Southern Colorado, and you can catch it online as a podcast. Wherever fine shows and mine are downloaded, catch the video of the show as well. Those car sounds were sent in by Bailey, one from the vault. He sent that in a while back, but I enjoy playing that one, and you can send your car sounds into the show. Facebook.com/Automotive ADHD for your chance to have them featured here on the show. You can tell your friends, hey, my car was on the radio, and they'll go, no way. And then they'll hear it on the radio, and they can tune into this show, and they can hear it on the podcast. Again, Facebook.com/Automotive ADHD. Now, one thing I got to get to is, and before we talk about Edison Motors and the potential government scandal that they uncovered. Before we talk about that, I need to talk about sponsors. Sponsorship opportunities are open on this show. You can be a sponsor on this show, especially if you're a small business owner here in Southern Colorado. You can reach a fantastic listening audience of car guys and gals and just folks who drive every day. And of course, a lot of us, not all of us are car guys, but a lot of us do have cars. So you can do that. And of course, doing that is also supporting this show. We've got a bunch of amazing things going on with this show. Of course, partnered up with Jimmy Ford from Jimmy Ford Racing. Again, that's jimmyfordracing.com for his run up the peak this year. I'm wearing the Pikes Peak Hill Climb hat right now. And of course, this show is going to be at the Hill Climb Fan Fest, broadcasting live from there. Really got a lot of stuff planned and some travel plans for the show later in the year. And of course, that all requires the help of sponsors to make that happen. So if you are a sponsor, a small business owner, or even a national company who wants to have your product, your brand featured on this show, reach out to me, matt@throttlewarrior.com. You can keep this show on the air. And of course, if you are just an individual and you enjoy listening to this show, and you want to support it in one way or another, you can do that. Patreon, and you can go to the Patreon and be a part of that. And the website is thespeedcouncil.org, thespeedcouncil.org, and support the show. Help make it happen, and I really appreciate that. And of course, you're keeping it on the air and keeping it in front of a lot of people who really enjoy it. So for that, I am grateful. Now, I got to talk a little bit about Edison Motors. Okay, so Edison Motors, the backstory on these guys. I've reached out to them before for an interview, and they got back, but they're really busy. They're kind of hard to book for interviews right now. So we're still working on that. Maybe I will get them. I'm leaving the door open, and we will see there. But that being said, they make, for context, okay, so they make diesel-electric hybrid logging trucks, kind of a niche specific item. And it's actually kind of cool how this works when you think about it, because you have not just an electric battery, well, I guess batteries, most batteries are electric. Most are, not to get technical, but you've got a battery, but you also have a diesel generator that powers that battery. So this is different than a regular hybrid, which has the engine connected to the drive wheels. This doesn't have that. The only thing driving the wheels is electric drive axles. And then you've got a battery that powers that. And then you've got a diesel generator that fills up that battery. And what's really cool about this is you can get really efficient with it because you don't need to use a gigantic diesel engine. A much smaller, more efficient diesel engine can be better at turning a generator at a certain set RPM. It doesn't have to have a perfect power band. You don't have to keep it in a power band. No, it just stays at this one RPM where it is most efficient at spinning a generator, essentially. And so you can save a lot on fuel with that. And here's the other cool idea with electric logging trucks. Fundamentally, I think I like the principle as a whole. You get all the benefits, the instantaneous torque of electric, and none of the drawbacks. You don't have to charge it for forever. You don't have to find charging areas. You can use readily available diesel in the generator, and that is very cool. But again, you still get that instant electric torque, and you can even have a trailer that has drive axles on it that are electric. You can have the trailer even push itself up separate from the tractor, or with the tractor, I should say, but, have better traction. And that's what they're doing with these logging trucks. And it also makes sense when you think about it, because you've got a logging truck that goes up a hill, right? Say you have a pure electric truck and you go up a hill, you expend energy to go up the hill, and then you go down the hill and you use regenerative braking with the electric motors. Now, you can never normally get a true one-to-one, charge the battery. If you discharge the battery all the way going up the hill and then charge it up all the way 100% going back down, it's not quite how physics work because of, efficiency and mechanical loss and stuff. But with a logging truck, whereas this is different because you drive up the hill empty, then you get to the top of the hill and they put 100,000 pounds of logs on your truck, and then you drive down the hill, but now your truck weighs 100,000 pounds more. And yes, you can charge the battery up all the way. So I think logging trucks make tremendous sense. Freight trucks, especially that go in the mountains. I mean, and we're talking this is in British Columbia they're based out of, by the way. You got steep mountains, you got all this crazy terrain, and having the ability to have multiple drive axles and then have the trailer have its own electric drive axles and all of this stuff is really cool. It is cool from a technical perspective. And they're saying, initially, early studies are saying that hybrids, again, are better. If you're environmentally concerned, hybrids, if anything, are better than pure electric or pure combustion. And a hybrid diesel electric makes a lot of sense. And in fact, it's how it's done for a lot of heavy duty construction equipment, and logging equipment is already diesel electric. It's been that way for decades. That's how they've done it. The electric drive axle powers the wheels, and a diesel generator creates electricity to do that. Tons of machines are already operated that way. And so I really like that. I like the principle behind what Edison Motors is doing. Now, Edison Motors is also kind of a jab at Tesla. The owner of the company, he initially ordered a Tesla, put a reservation in for a Tesla semi-truck, and Tesla still isn't making semi-trucks. They said they would. It's been a while. They're still not doing it. And he said, you know what? We can build our own, and we can build it better. And that's what they did. They build custom from scratch trucks, but the interesting thing is they use all off-the-shelf parts. It's all stuff you can get. It's nothing super fancy and expensive like a Tesla Semi is, which is all proprietary stuff. Everything is engineered to the 10th degree. No, this is off-the-shelf parts. They said, essentially, with Edison Motors, that you can fix the truck in the bush, in the woods, in the middle of nowhere, because we built it in the bush. And I like that. And, it also goes to right to repair. They're huge right to repair advocates. They have massive advocacy for that. Whereas Tesla is the opposite. If anything, Edison Motors is truly the antithesis of Tesla when you think about it. And now what's going on with the government, the Canadian government and Edison Motors. So the Canadian government essentially has grant programs to help Canadian businesses start and make, for example, clean diesel electric hybrid trucks specifically. They have grants specifically for that. And they say, hey, we want people in Canada manufacturing electric trucks. We want that industry. No one makes electric trucks. Let's start some grants so some companies will come along and make some electric trucks. And then Edison Motors goes, hey, what about us? We're in Canada and we've been making electric trucks. And we have several working prototypes. And we use them and we demonstrate them, which is more than most companies that are actually filing for this grant, by the way. And so they apply for a grant. They get mysteriously denied the grant, even though they're actually doing what the grant is seeking to help. And they say, with the grant money, we can expand, we can create more business, we can create more trucks, we can employ people building the trucks, which again is good. That's commendable. But then what's interesting, they were denied the grant, and then a third-party company called MNP offered to help them write a new grant and say, hey, we're a grant writing company. We can help you write your grant and help you get it approved. Well, here's where the problems start. They start digging into it, and allegedly MNP is, what they're saying right now, is the same company that offers grant writing services to other companies, but then they're also contracted by the Canadian government to actually administer the grants and manage the grants. So you can see there's a little bit of a conflict of interest there. They say, oh, that's a shame. Your grant was declined. We help people write grants, but we take 20% of that grant money. Oh, by the way, we're also the people who approve the grants. So you should really use our services to, get your grant written and probably get it approved. Isn't that a little weird? Now, M&P denies this happening, but Edison Motors says they've got correspondence and communications with all of this happening. And it makes you wonder. If we're talking about government funding things, if you listen to the show, I'm not a fan of things like EV tax credits. I'm not. I think we shouldn't be subsidizing these things in the first place, but if we do, we should be subsidizing them better than we are now, which is actually subsidizing the right thing, which we're not. But when you look at this too, whether you're the United States government, whether you're the Canadian government, it doesn't matter. If you say we're going to have grants and we're going to have subsidies for things like this, you should do it the right way. And you should do it in a way that's actually beneficial for the cause. If your goal is to make more efficient trucks so you can burn less fuel and consume less energy, and you can do that with diesel electric, then you should subsidize that. But they're clearly not. That's not what they're doing. Just like here in the United States, we've got $12,000 EV tax credits so people can go buy EVs, people who, mind you, for the most part, can already afford to buy these EVs, because they're expensive as is. But, we're not subsidizing hybrids. We're not subsidizing the production of cleaner alternatives even. No, we're just fixated on this one thing. And it makes you wonder, are they really subsidizing it because it's the best technology? Or are they subsidizing it because something else is going on? And I think that's what Edison Motors has brought up here. Anyway, going to keep working on reaching out to Edison Motors. Hopefully we can get them for an interview. If we do, you will be the first to hear about it. It will be fantastic. I love those guys. I love what they're doing. Hope to get them on the show. Now, don't go anywhere. You're listening to Automotive ADHD right here.
At the Speed Council, getting things done fast is our priority. We do everything fast, from driving, working, sleeping, and eating.
Someone help! He's choking!
This is Tim.
Hello.
And by the time this ad is over, he'll have bicycled across the earth 69 times. Nice. Even if our name sounds unfamiliar, you know our work. F1? Pfft, child's play. The world's first supersonic jet? Yup, that was us. Apollo 11? Also us. The fastest animal in the sea? Hell, we even wrote the Wikipedia article. Fast. And we're so dedicated to speed that we've genetically engineered the world's first hyperspeed speed machine.
With this scientific breakthrough, you can interact with and download your favorite automotive podcast a whole day early. How's that for fast? Learn more at facebook.com/automotiveadhd.
This message approved by the Speed Council and the Church of Fast Things.
Hey, those car sounds from Ryan's Ford Falcon. Just a reminder, you can send your car sounds into the show here on the Automotive ADHD show. Matt West here hanging out with you talking cars. You can send those car sounds into facebook.com/automotive ADHD. Have them featured here on the show. Now, I didn't necessarily intend for this whole segment to be a NASCAR themed segment, but that's how it's panning out. So, the other week I was talking about the NASCAR themed Croc shoes, the foam shoes, or you could call them NAS Crocs, you could say, and you could tell someone, hey, those are some NAS Crocs you have there. And I thought that was great. I've had an opinion on NASCAR before, which is that I think it's too neutered now. It's too safe. It's too rule-oriented. The tiniest little thing is a big deal, and it just goes so much against the roots of NASCAR and what NASCAR started as. And if you're not familiar, NASCAR has its roots in bootlegging, moonshine running. I mean, it's fairly common knowledge that NASCAR, in many ways, not getting into the really detailed history of who did what and who started what and how the organization was formed, but the actual racing itself happened with bootleggers who were modifying their cars, essentially, to outrun police. And that's what they did. And then at night, they would go race their cars with their buddies on the weekends. They'd moonshine, or they'd run booze at night, and then on the weekends go race, is essentially what would happen. And that created a tremendous hot rodding culture. And it's very much the founding, at least, of NASCAR. And here's what's really cool. A speedway specifically a famous NASCAR venue, the North Wilkesboro Speedway in North Carolina. Recently, they were doing some routine cleaning and some maintenance, and a sinkhole appeared in the grandstands. Now, thankfully, it wasn't at an event. No one was in the grandstands, but a sinkhole nonetheless opened up and revealed a big empty cave. And they said, gee, this doesn't look like a natural sinkhole. It doesn't seem right. Why did this open up? Why was it under the grandstands? And this is where it's really cool, because there is a local legend, an urban legend, that back in the day, the Speedway was built in 1947, and that back in the day, bootlegging happened at the Speedway. And that there's even a legend that underneath the grandstands was a secret stash of moonshine. Either they would make it there or they would stash it there. And this legend has been going on for decades and decades. And many wrote it off as just another urban legend. They happen, they're around. But as it turns out, well, we don't know for sure. They didn't find any actual bottles of booze in there. They didn't find any stills, any equipment for making moonshine. But it does kind of correspond with the urban legend. Interesting, right? I mean, so, and here, tell you what, give this a listen real quick. I'm going to roll this clip. Check this out.
A discovery that could help uncover a piece of history. Officials with the North Wilkesboro Speedway uncover what many believe is a tunnel that holds a history of making moonshine.
For years and years, decades actually, there have been stories about moonshine stills or possible bootlegging taking place around North Wilkesboro Speedway, and some of the rumors were that it was under one of the grandstands.
Officials say in revamping the Speedway, they've prioritized keeping the nostalgic feel.
Okay, so again, we don't really know if these were bootlegging caves, but come on. You want them to be. I want them to be. It just works so well. And who knows? Maybe they'll find some more stuff with it, but it just does kind of go back to the start of NASCAR, the era, the culture that started it. Now, you might be saying, well, hold on here. The Speedway was built in 1947. Prohibition was repealed in 1933. Why would they still be bootlegging? Easy answer. Taxes. That's why. Prohibition ended. You could sell booze again legally. The government taxed the heck out of it. So obviously bootlegging still happened, and weirdly still does in some places. So no, it makes sense when you think about the circumstantial evidence. And yes, I know you can't necessarily prove things with circumstantial evidence, but it makes enough for a good story. That's for sure. And when you think about the fact that bootlegging happened in the area specifically, it was well known in that area. It was known at the start of NASCAR. In fact, it was the kind of almost the root cause for NASCAR to have been created, right? So you've got that, and then you've got the Speedway and the rumors for decades that there was a stash under the Speedway, under the grandstands, no less. So I think this is cool. If anything, the North Wilkesboro Speedway is probably going to monetize the heck out of this. And I don't know if in their concessionary, if they've got a liquor license to actually sell liquor and stuff, but if I were them, I would get a liquor license and start selling Speedway moonshine, quote unquote. I mean, come on. The marketing opportunities here are endless. It's really fun. It'll make for a fun story. It does make me wonder, though, if you're sitting in those grandstands, I would be a little worried. Maybe they need to do a little bit of a kind of a ground survey, a structure survey of those grandstands. I don't know if I would want to be sitting in them when they cave into another moonshine cave full of moonshine, probably. Hopefully this time. So anyway, speaking of NASCAR, speaking of the kind of raw nature, at least where NASCAR came from, where I think it's departed from now. This is funny, and I actually like this. This happened back on March 30th, but I was too busy on the show swooning about Toyotas and things like that, and I totally missed this. Joey Gase, NASCAR driver, was racing at the Toyota Care 250 in Richmond, which I guess a Toyota event, right? Well, he got hit by another vehicle and spun out and put his car rear end first into a wall, obliterated the back end of his car. And as you can guess, he probably wasn't very happy about this. Now, why am I talking about this now? Because some new information has come out relating to this. I think you're going to totally get a kick out of. But before I tell you about that, go ahead and check out this right here.
So he's going to take a moment to really express his frustration here. First, he's going to finish tearing the rear bumper cover off his car, and then wait for Dawson Cram, and his timing and throw was pretty impeccable here.
Yeah, he did a good job at this right here. Boom, right in the windshield.
I think I would have left my driver gloves on. OSHA would not have approved pulling that bumper cover off without the gloves.
You know,
that part or the playing in the traffic part?
Yes.
I was going to say, OSHA has a problem with no gloves. NASCAR has.
Oh, man. Okay, so what you can see there, if you're watching the video of the show on YouTube and Rumble, what you can see there is that he got out of his car while other cars were driving by, ripped the bumper, the fiberglass bumper cover off of the car that was all smashed up, and as the other car that hit him initially came back around for another lap, not at full speed, they were slow, caution, driving slow past the wreck now, but getting around, he took the bumper and threw it right at the windshield of the car that hit him. And one could say NASCAR would probably look down upon this action. They would say it's not very sportsmanlike. No, it's not, and that's why it's amazing. But they fined Joey Gase $5,000. And here's where things get interesting. They said that was not very sportsmanlike, and yes, he walked out onto the track. That's a problem, and all of this. These are all things that you're not allowed to do, and they fined him $5,000, which is like nothing for a NASCAR driver. I mean, that's like literally nothing. But that being said, now a bumper company has seen the video, has seen that it has gone viral, and it is a company called Bumpers That Deliver, which is a company I've never heard of. I've never bought a bumper, but they sell paint-matched bumpers for all sorts of vehicles, which, hey, maybe they could, sponsor the show. Who knows, right? Need that paint-matched bumper. But they decided to reach out to him, and they tossed him some money in exchange for the publicity here, and they sponsored him now. And what's amazing is, so on his car, they showed the livery, the new livery of the car now with the sponsorship. And it's got Bumpers That Deliver proudly on the rear quarter panel. And then the picture of him holding the bumper mid-throw as he's about to huck it at the other car. And it's a picture of him there throwing the bumper. I think this is the best turn of events. This is what NASCAR should be about. Racing and hilarious stuff like this. I think this was just too good. An opportunity. I mean, talk about some genius marketing. This is an opportunity that you really wouldn't want to miss out on. Bumpers That Deliver, showing that they have a sense of humor with it. And I love this picture of Joey Gase just mid-throw with the bumper. Fantastic stuff. Hey, don't go anywhere. We are going to talk about, speaking of Toyota and some JDM cars now. You might want to hear this after the break here on Automotive ADHD.
Colorado Springs' #1 car show by default. This is Automotive ADHD.
Hey, those car sounds were played with a purpose. Matt West here, hanging out with you, talking cars on the Automotive ADHD show. Patrick Suzuki Carry. It's an older car sound, but it is relevant to this story. A Suzuki Carry, you might be saying. What is that? Not heard of that. It's not. It sounded kind of like a motorcycle. Not a motorcycle, though. That is a car that is among the classification of cars called K cars. And we're not talking about, the K platform Chrysler. No. We're not talking about that at all. No, that you would be thinking of, things like the Chrysler, the LeBaron and Dodge Aries, the really terrible Chryslers and Mopars and stuff from the 1980s. Though those have a very interesting history worth talking about, just not right now. I mean, they are the reason we have cool cars now, like the, Challenger Hellcats and things like that, because they kept Chrysler, they kept Mopar afloat through the 1980s. And there's an interesting story behind how, the government, Uncle Sam, bailed out Chrysler because Chrysler had some government contracts. But then Lee Iacocca used the K car to, bolster sales of commuter cars, general average cars. And they paid back the money that Uncle Sam gave him with interest. So interesting story. We'll get into all the details of that maybe on another day. But that's not the K car we're talking about. Purely coincidental, in fact, that K car shares that platform, shares a name with what I'm talking about here, which are K cars, KEI, short for Keijidosha cars, which are Japanese cars. Again, Keijidosha, which what that means is it is a small little baby tiny little car. They're little tiny cars, and they have to meet certain size, external dimensions, as well as engine displacement requirements to get a certain tax break on the roads in Japan. So they have usually 660cc engines. They're very tiny. They're cool cars. They are loved, widely loved by enthusiasts now, JDM enthusiasts who like importing them. I guarantee you've seen them on the road. Weird little mini trucks, weird little cab over mini trucks with a tiny little pickup bed. Also K vans, K sports cars. You've got the AutoZam AZ1. You've got the Honda Beat, the Suzuki Cappuccino, which I love the Cappuccinos. I endeavor to own one at some point just because they're silly and they're tiny and I could fit it in the little corner of my garage and it would still be fine. But here's the thing. These are fun cars. Usually their tiny little engines are capped. Normally they're capped at displacement, like I mentioned. But as a result, in order to get more power out of them, well, you need to look at to get more horsepower. And horsepower is a function of torque and RPMs, for example. So increase the RPM. So they're little cars. Even the basic commuter cars rev up to 8,000 RPM. They're great. They're cool. But here's the problem with K cars, which is that the U.S. government is coming after them. And specifically, they actually have been doing this for a couple of years now, going back at least to 2021, with different states actually revoking registrations for legally imported and owned and registered K cars. And so you could have gone through all the hoops of importing one of these interesting little mini cars from Japan to the United States. And for context, the car has to be 25 years old. It does. To be imported and brought in at least the most easy way, which is the way everyone does it. 25 years old. And that's basically the only requirement it has to meet. It just has to be old. Japan is still making these K cars now, but the ones we see in the U.S. are from the 80s and the 90s because that's what people can import. And so here's the thing, though. You'd go through all the hoops. You import it. You go through the paperwork. It's got to be 25 years old. It's got to do all of that. And then you can actually get a U.S. VIN for it, and you can register the car and all these things. And then only to have your registration revoked by your state, which is wild. So what is going on with this is a organization called the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, or AAMVA. That's a hard acronym to say fast, but they recommend to states. They're not a regulating body. They don't pass laws, but they create recommendations that states generally follow to be compliant with their guidelines. And they came out with some recommendations saying that K cars are unfit for American roads, which I find that to be offensive. But granted, let's look at it realistically. When you look at a K car, yeah, they kind of are unfit for American roads. They're like half the size of even a Miata, basically. They're tiny. There's no crash protection in them whatsoever. The little engines, try as they might at 8,000 RPM, they don't get these things going very fast because in Japan, you've got lower speed limits in Japan. So 75 mile an hour speed limits wasn't really a thing. You're not cruising long distances either. Japan is a tiny country with small roads. America, we're a massive country. I mean, with entire states being 2 to 3 times the size of Japan. God knows how many times bigger Texas is than Japan. But speaking of Texas, this is where things get good. Texas, the state of freedom, has decided that freedom should also apply to K cars, by the way. And while the AAMVA, American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, while they recommended to other states that these cars are not fit for roads, they're not safe in crashes, blah, 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 blah. No one cares about that. Despite those recommendations, which again are prompting states to say you can no longer register these vehicles, which I think is not right, because if you've already registered especially, they should grandfather you in no matter what. The fact that they're actually going out of their way, and a lot of these states are on the East Coast, New York, Pennsylvania, some of the biggest offenders of this. Maine, Rhode Island is also an offender of doing this, of just revoking people's registrations. You got to grandfather stuff in. If you let it in once, you got to keep it in. But that being said, Texas has now decided that there's been a push in Texas, even a political push. Some outspoken advocates for K cars have been pushing Texas governments to, different counties, DMVs and stuff, and overall the state government to allow K cars. And it has actually worked. This is a win for car enthusiasts in Texas because Texas now has said that counties, quote, should begin accepting and processing title and registration applications for, quote unquote, mini vehicles and ensure that the applicant or dealer provides all required title and registration documents. And it goes on to talk about what those are. But regardless, I mean, Texas is saying, yes, you can bring your weird little mini car to Texas and you can drive it on your roads, which, by the way, is what we've been doing. So we're kind of back to square one, which is what we've been doing, but that's fine. That's what we want. As car enthusiasts, and a lot of car enthusiasts, you got such a broad spectrum of car enthusiasts. You got your muscle car guys, you got your diesel bros, you got your JDM fans, you got stance bros. For better or for worse, you've got the stance guys. But still, that being said, there are people who love these cars and they want to drive them. People do say, well, yeah, they're really unsafe though. But look at how small a portion of these K cars is. I mean, it's such a small portion, probably in the tenths of a percent. I don't know if there's ever been an actual statistic to show how many K cars are in the U.S. I don't know if anyone's ever done that, but it's so small. I mean, even when you look at the JDM car guys, like the people of the JDM car nuts, of those people, the people who bring K cars in is even smaller. So it's such a small portion of things. And to say that, well, yeah, they're not safe because they don't conform to modern crash regulations and because they're small is ridiculous. Because look at all the old cars we have on the roads now that don't conform to modern crash regulations. Because guess what? They were old cars and those regulations weren't in place when the cars were made. So they were grandfathered in. That's just how it goes. My Honda, my S2000, it doesn't conform to modern crash safety requirements, but that doesn't mean I have to stop driving it on the roads. So I think this is a win for K car owners. And in a weird way, a win for at least personal freedom to do that stuff. I equate it to even things like seatbelt laws, which I wear a seatbelt every day without fail. But I also think that should really be your choice because you're not harming anyone other than yourself in doing that. And that's the same thing with K cars. I mean, if you choose to accept the risk of driving a K car, well, and you get in a crash with a semi truck, well, yeah, you probably won't make it out alive, but you're the only one harmed by that, not the other drivers. So anyway, I think this is a win for automotive enthusiasts. Good job on Texas. Hey, thanks for listening to this edition of the Automotive ADHD Show. Remember to catch the podcast wherever fine shows and this one are downloaded. Give it a rating on Spotify and follow it on YouTube and Rumble. I'll talk to you right here next week.